Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to do a video actually about the 1932 Ford Roadster project because we're getting into our winter projects again. I know that's not a 1932 Ford, but actually the 32 Ford was something we started before this Porsche showed up. It was one of those things where the Porsche kind of came up in terms of a blown engine car. We jumped on it right away. I had a 1960 Austin Healey project I had picked up a little while ago. I sold that and ended up buying this and the motor. So I am doing some stuff on that to kick off the winter, but the 32 Ford Roadster is actually going to get worked on as well. Now, what's funny is all the Porsche videos, the Roadster's in the background, and I get so many messages about what is that you're building back there. They actually seem to be more keenly interested in the 32 than they are in the Porsche, but all good. So this is a video just to talk a little bit about introduction of what's been happening with the 32, give you some history about it, how I came to get it, what the plans are for it, and what we're going to be working on in the winter, and just kind of get you up to speed. And then I'll be posting more videos in the playlist around the 32. So yeah, let's get started on it. So one thing I've been really fortunate is locating some of the rarest cars when I go look for something to build, which is good in one way, bad in another. I think my wife doesn't really like it too much that I can find project cars so easily, but it is what I've learned over time in building cars for lots of different years, is it is better to try and find something that is on the rarer side or the more desirable side. The amount of time and money that you're going to put into building a car is pretty much the same regardless of what you build. What I mean by that is, let's say you get a 1965 four-door Falcon or something, which if you love that car, no offense, but the resale value on that car is not going to be very high. But to build that into a really nice or a custom car, let's say it's going to cost you $40,000 or $50,000 if you're doing a lot of the work yourself. If you're paying somebody else, it's going to cost you more than that. But let's just say it's going to cost you 40 or 50 grand to do it yourself. If you bought a 1967 Mustang Fastback, it's going to cost you $40,000 or $50,000 to do the work yourself, but the resale value afterwards is much, much, much higher. Now, it's not always about resale value. Like, if you love a certain car, go do that car. That's all up to you. But if you want to make sure that you're getting your investment back out of it, or at least know, hey, this car is worth what I put into it, it's better to go after things that are a little bit more desirable or rarer. So that's what I would always recommend with doing stuff. So generally when I go look for cars, over the most recent years, I do look for something that's a little bit on the higher end of desirability. So that being said, it does have to match who you are and what kind of car you want to build. If you're cool putting money into something that's just you're going to be upside down on, then go to it. All power to you. But anyways, that's what I look for. Fortunately, I've been very lucky in finding certain cars when I decided to go look for them. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of how I acquired the 32 Ford Roadster, and then I'm going to go into exactly what it is and what I'm building with it. So I had just finished a 1957 F100 I built as a cheap shop truck. And the idea was I wanted something to pull my boat around with, to go get parts with, just to kind of boot around with the kids, that kind of stuff. And so I'd finished that car, and I have somebody who's an appraiser I use locally. He's done everything you can think of in terms of appraisals. He does all the Concours d'Elegance shows, you name it, very qualified appraiser. So I had him come by to do an appraiser to make sure that I had a value on the car before I started driving it on the road. So he was over appraising the car. He actually also appraised my 1969 Super Bee I had that was kind of a numbers matching restoration. I was talking to him while he was doing the appraisal, and I had wanted to do something that was 30s, and I liked the Fords in the early 30s. So the 32 to 34 Ford was kind of like what I desired. I actually kind of like the 33 and the 34 a little bit more. They're a longer car, kind of nicer fenders on them, I think. But I love the 32, of course, but they're kind of rare as hen's teeth, so kind of figured the 33 or 34 would be kind of neat. So in passing, while he was doing the appraisal, I said, if you happen to know anybody who has a 32 or 30 to 34 Ford project car, I might be interested. Just in passing. I wasn't interested in buying one at that moment in time. I had another vehicle I was starting on after the truck I had planned, which is a 1956 Ford Park Lane. I still have that car, but I haven't started on it yet. So that was the plan. After the truck was finished, I was going to start on that car. About a week or so later, he calls me back and says, listen, I've got a lot of cars, realized I have less time on this earth than I have time to finish them all. I've got two 1932 Ford Roadsters, original Henry Steel cars. Do you want to buy them? Both of them at the time. It eventually turned into his son wanted one of the other ones, and there was only one for sale. So I went by and I saw the car. It had done work on it over the years, which is kind of normal, but it is what it was. It was an original 1932 Ford Roadster. You do not really get that opportunity much anymore, so I jumped on it. So I did pick up the car. I put the 56 Ford Park Lane on hold because I thought building the 32 would be cooler than building the wagon. And so, I acquired the vehicle. I could tell it needed to get completely redone. I did at the time when I first started it was going to do a very traditional hot rod, so flathead V8, really traditional hot rod was my original plan with it. But I always wanted to keep the body 100% original, no modifications to the body, and I wanted to do a full fendered car. So that was my concept kind of going into it. I had the 69 Super B, I did own it at the time, and because it was an original restoration, carbureted, the whole 9 yards. Originally it came from the factory. I was having a lot of problems just dealing with fiddling with it. So if you've owned a classic car before, part of the ownership is just generally fiddling with it to keep the thing running. I was getting into a lot of different issues with it. I'd get it running perfect, and then, season would change, whatever, I'd have to tune it again. I was getting really annoyed with it. And it actually did push me more to, back to my roots, I guess you could say, when I started doing stuff, was more to the resto mod side and getting into more pure fuel injected. So what I had done with the truck, the F100 as well, is I had switched to the Sniper EFI, Holley Sniper EFI fuel injection kind of system instead of the carburetor. And it was like 10 times better. So I now was pushing more into that way, and that's where I've ended up now. Because of dealing with the pain of having an original kind of 60s car. So I abandoned the idea of going with the flathead style. I decided to go with something that was slightly more modern but not getting too ridiculous. And what I did decide to go with was a Ford 302. So that's a 60s 302. It's a Mexican block 302. So that means it was made in Mexico. Why the Mexican block 302s are better is the rumor is the content of nickel in the motor, and you guys can correct me if I'm all wrong in this. I'm totally cool with it. But on my research, that the type of metal that was used was stronger, and the way it was cast was thicker than the US-made 302 blocks. So they're a little bit more desirable because they are considered to be a stronger block. So I went with that. It's got aluminum heads on it. And what I did do with it is I put the Edelbrock pro-flo 4 EFI system on it, which is pretty cool because it uses proper fuel rails instead of just being a EFI throttle body unit on top. It is using fuel rails to inject directly into the cylinders, which is a better system than a throttle body system. But the look of it, it just looks like a carbureted engine setup. You can just see some kind of shiny rails on it. So I liked how the fact it kept a lot of originality to it. The pro-flo system that it comes with, you can Bluetooth with your iPhone or Android phone. You can tune it with your phone, do a lot of maintenance that way. So it's pretty trick in that regard. But to me, I liked it because it kept a lot of the originality to it. What I've decided to do with it in a theme, if you'll notice in some of the sort of shot videos that you've probably been seeing as the video goes on here, is I like to keep all the mechanical components silver. So most of the components have been powder coated in a matte silver. The engine is completely silver. So it's a very like a mechanical look, aluminum silver kind of concept. And the rest of the car is a dark blue. I actually decided to find a dark blue powder coat I really liked first, and then I color matched that to ironically, it came out to be a Ford blue color from, I think it was an 86 Ford Econoline van. It was actually an interior color, as odd as that is. But it's a really cool dark blue color. As I said, I was trying to keep everything stock in terms of the body. I have added a few things on here, so it does have push button start. So it does use a key fob like a modern car. There is no keyed ignition. So you can just leave the fob in your pocket just like you do with a modern car, and you just push button start it. What I did is a lot of 3D design. So I do 3D scanning and 3D design to build my own custom parts. So there's a few cool things that I'm doing on here. I've made my own instrument panel. So I went with classic instruments for the gauges. But I wanted to do it because there's only two gauges, of course, and they're smaller. I wanted to combine everything, so the speedometer and the RPM are combined, and all the other instruments are combined in a quad gauge. But because of the size, I couldn't fit the odometer in a way that I liked within the speedometer, so they have an option for an external speedometer package, which is kind of this big box that you get. So I designed my own panel that incorporated that odometer in a different area. Has a plexiglass cover on it, and then it mounts from the back. And then at the same time, I decided, well, I might as well put some turn signal indicators, high beam indicators, and an e-brake indicator in the panel as well. And then I engine turned it, or machine turned it myself to get more of an original look, because the original look of the dash was machine turned with a polished bezel. So I did that. I machined a panel underneath, which is a switch panel. So if you've seen the Roadster dashboard, I'll throw a picture up now of an original one. But it's a beautiful panel, but I didn't want to drill any holes in it or put any other switches in it or anything like that. But there is more switches I need. And so I did a design panel. It's all of aluminum that will mount below. I'm building a support frame that will go behind the dash panel that will support that, and then the dash panel just will go over top. So nothing will be drilled or mounted into the original dash panel. The switches will allow for everything else that I want to have on the vehicle. So my push button starts in the middle, my fog lights and my headlight switch is there. And I actually am also incorporating a power vent. So usually the vent on the 32's got a big handle in the middle that you use to push up, and that's what opened the cowl vent. I'm putting a power one in, so that allows me to open and close the vent action on it. So just some kind of custom touches, but if you kind of see, I'm sort of trying to keep it as old school looking as I can. So it's obviously not going to be period correct, but trying to keep it in that flavor of a vintage hot rod while adding a lot of modern touches to it, so in a resto mod style. There's a few other things I don't have on the car yet because of where it is in the stage of the build, but I designed my own low car shift button. There's a few pieces like the air cleaner vent cap. I designed some pieces for that to match the theme of the car. So yeah, there's a few pieces everywhere that I've kind of custom designed. The chassis is not the original frame for this vehicle, so I kind of felt just a little bit bad taking an original 32 frame and boxing it and doing a bunch of work to it to make it a lot stronger. So the old school frames, there was not a lot to them. I mean, they had little four-banger engines. Yes, you could get a V8 in these cars, but there are flatheads. They didn't put a lot of horsepower down. So torquing the frame was not a big deal, and to be honest, I don't think they really cared back then. So the frames used to twist and do a bunch of stuff. You're going to put something like a more modern Ford 302 in it. It's got a Ford AOD transmission, and it's got the Ford 9-inch posi rear end in it. The frame's going to twist like crazy. So you would need to box it. You would need to do some more supports to it. It is old steel. And the fact is, it was original 32 Ford frame. So I knew people locally in the community who do original traditional hot rods, and they also do original restorations. So I felt it better, just being a bit of a car purist myself, to sell the chassis with the powertrain with the vehicle to somebody else who was building another 32. He had a 32 body. He accumulated parts over time. So he didn't have a chassis, he had a body. So I sold the chassis and the powertrain to him, and I procured a brand new chassis from someone else. Besides that, it's got the standard kind of hot rod stuff. It's got the Pete and Jake's wishbone fronts, standard kind of leaf solid axle in the front, but it's dropped. And then it's got a 4-link rear with coilovers in the back. 2 1/4 stainless exhaust system, dual exhaust system all the way through. So, pretty standard kind of hot rod stuff from there. The tank, the original tank went with the original chassis. I've used a tank from Tanks Incorporated. It's a larger capacity tank, and it does have, it's set up for fuel injection, so it's got a larger pump in it. It's not the standard kind of pickup in it. It's got an actual proper EFI pump, fuel pump in it. And I did go with a 32 Ford luggage rack on the back. Maybe that's a little bit much for a hot rod. A lot of people like the more traditional lines. I sort of like some of the old school styling. I think with a full bodied car, with full fenders and everything, having the luggage rack in the back kind of makes it a little bit more deluxe kind of style. Adding a bit of a traditional hot rod flair where I am going with steel wheels with the baby moon caps and the white walls. So I'm going the red with the white walls. So it's got a very red, white, and blue kind of theme to it overall. I did find a setup where I went 17-inch rears, 15 fronts, so it keeps the same profile of tire. So the white wall in the front and the back from a tire profile perspective will look the same. I don't like too much the big wheel in the back and the small wheel in the front. I know that is a traditional hot rod styling, I get it, but to me I like something that looks a little bit more proportional. Even though technically my tires are bigger in the front and smaller in the back, I just wanted something that was a kind of a similar profile. I think it should look pretty good. So yeah, where I'm at with the project is the car's actually ready to fire. I actually was about to start it up before the Porsche showed up. I decided not to. I just decided to hold off until I got to a place with the Porsche. I was finished with it and I was ready to move back fully on this one. So where I'm at now is I want to finish a few things on it. I have noticed I want to fix a few things on the brakes. Then I'm going to fire it up, make sure it works. So I'll do a video, of course, on the first fire. See if that's all working. And then I have to go into body work. Let me talk a little bit about the body. So one thing I noticed was when we took the car apart was there was a lot of crazy stuff that was going on. I think somebody got a pop rivet gun for Christmas. The whole floor was completely removed. There was some sort of galvanized floor that somebody had put together with pop rivets and glue and everything else you can think of. So that was completely removed out. I had to get a new reproduction floor pan. So it's got a new reproduction floor pan in it. And it was probably built in the 70s and nobody really cared. The value of these cars was not what they are today. There was a lot of there was lead that I found in the car. It looked like it had been hit from behind at some point. So the rear corners were just toast. The rear back panel was toast. It was just so full of lead, and then somebody had put in Bondo, badly, really thick Bondo. It was bad. So the rear panel I unfortunately had to let go. The rear corners I got really fortunate on. One of the sort of old school forums out there, I just found a posting that was posted literally like a minute before I checked, that somebody had found 2 rear corners from a Roadster that were cut off eons ago and put on a shelf. And I grabbed them. I didn't even negotiate the price. I just bought what the guy was asking for them because you can't get them. You can get reproduction corners. I tried those. They're not good. Straight up, they just can't find ones that fit right. So I did find those. I did 3D scan them in case I ever wanted to make reproductions at some point in time. But anyways, I've got to graft those on in the corner. I did get a reproduction center panel that goes below. I've got 2 trunks in the back. So I've picked the better of the 2. I've got to deal with that and get that all lined up. So I've got some metal work there. I did find previous patch panels where rust had been pop riveted with these pieces over top. I've been removing those and replacing them. The rocker panels, which are these, when I say rocker panels, it's not like modern cars, they're these very thin strips. they're rotten out beyond repair. I just have to put new reproductions on there. I'm trying to keep the reproduction panels at a minimum because it is an original body car. I have gone with any reproduction panels I get, I make sure it's the same gauge of steel at least, so I can keep everything as close to as original as possible, and I'm cutting them down to the smallest piece I can within reason. So I've got to get on some patch panel work, and then there's a lot of straightening to do. I have accumulated multiple fenders over time. The rear fenders that came with the car were repairable, only because it's such an old car and it's so rare and it's original steel. I can say that. If this was a 70s car, you would just probably bin them and buy new reproduction ones because it's just not worth it. But I have accumulated, I think I've got 3 sets in total now over time. So I'm going to pick the best of the lot, and they still need bodywork. I just can't avoid it. I mean, the car's 90 years old. It's going to happen. I've got 2 or 3 sets of front fenders as well. Same situation. They have a common issue with splitting. So I'm going to have to deal with that and putting the support bars in them and stuff. So that I do have a lot of fun there. But the hood's pretty good. The panels are pretty good. The front radiator support's actually not too bad. I mean, it all needs bodywork, but it's like nowhere near as bad as a lot of them out there. So those are all pretty good. So yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a lot of bodywork. So my plan is I'm going to get it fired up, make sure it runs, everything's good on that side. Then I'm going to switch fully over to the main body. My plan is to get most of the main body done, the under part sealed and painted, and then I want to mount the body back on the chassis. So I'm doing the bodywork directly on the chassis instead of on my rotisserie. And then yeah, just kind of work the process. My plan was to get this on the road next year. It's just going to really be how fast I can get through the bodywork. There is hundreds of hours of bodywork ahead on this car. So if it's next summer or it's a year after that, I don't know. It's going to take whatever it takes. Yeah, so I mean, anyways, that's pretty much the Cole's notes of what's kind of going on with the 32 Ford and what it's all about. Hope this answers some of the questions I've had about what the car is, what's going on with it. I'm going to post more videos as I go along. There's some cool methods I've tried to adapt using 3D technology as well as like old school things that I've kind of found. I'm going to share, I'll credit everybody who I learned from on YouTube, etc. Some of the techniques I used, I'm going to show you how I use them when I'm doing some of the bodywork and stuff. So, I mean, stay tuned to the playlist and I'll post as much as possible. Yeah, so anyways, that's it. Happy motoring, stay safe. See you in the next one.